Imagine kneeling beside a muddy river after walking for miles beneath the hot African sun. There are no water filters, no bottled water, no boiling, no chemical purification tablets, no knowledge of bacteria, viruses, or parasites, only thirst. Most people today would hesitate before taking a single sip. We are constantly reminded that untreated water can carry dangerous microorganisms capable of causing severe diarrhea, dehydration, and even death. Yet for hundreds of thousands of years, every human being who ever lived depended entirely on natural water sources. So why didn't prehistoric humans die from drinking dirty water? Did they possess stronger stomachs than we do today? Did ancient rivers somehow contain fewer dangerous microbes? Or have we misunderstood what dirty water actually meant? The answer begins with one important realization. Ancient water was not automatically cleaner than modern water, but it also was not automatically dirtier. When we picture prehistoric life, many people imagine humans drinking from stagnant swamps filled with mud and decaying plants. While this certainly happened during desperate times, it was probably not the most common source of drinking water. Early humans were remarkably observant. Survival depended upon reading landscapes with extraordinary accuracy. Finding safe water was no different from finding edible plants or tracking animals. Across Africa, Europe, and Asia, hunter-gatherers usually preferred flowing water whenever it was available. Mountain streams, natural springs, freshwater rivers, seasonal creeks, rainwater collected in rock basins, snowmelt flowing downhill. These moving water sources generally contained fewer harmful microorganisms than stagnant pools because flowing water carries away waste, increases oxygen levels, and limits the accumulation of decaying organic material. None of this made the water sterile, but it often reduced the concentration of dangerous pathogens. Ironically, appearances can be misleading. Crystal clear water is not always safe. Many parasites, bacteria, and viruses are completely invisible to the naked eye. Even today, hikers occasionally become infected with organisms such as Giardia after drinking from streams that appear perfectly clean. Meanwhile, muddy water is not necessarily dangerous simply because it looks unpleasant. Sometimes the cloudiness comes from harmless clay or suspended sediment rather than disease-causing microbes. Our ancestors had no microscopes, yet they possessed something equally valuable: generations of accumulated experience. People learned which springs consistently produced healthy families. They remembered which ponds often made people sick. Knowledge spread through observation rather than scientific textbooks. Wildlife also became an important teacher. Many animals require sodium, minerals, and clean water just as humans do. Herds of antelope, elephants, deer, horses, and countless other species repeatedly visited dependable water sources. Hunter-gatherers paid close attention. Following animal trails often led not only to hunting opportunities but also to reliable fresh water. If generations of healthy animals consistently drank from the same spring, early humans likely considered it worth investigating. Of course, animals sometimes drank contaminated water as well, but patterns mattered. Observation became one of humanity's earliest survival technologies. Early humans also learned to recognize warning signs: a pool containing dead animals, water with a foul smell, heavy insect infestations, obvious waste nearby. These clues suggested that something was wrong, even if nobody understood microorganisms. Natural selection rewarded people who avoided unnecessary risks. Still, despite all this careful observation, prehistoric water remained far from perfectly safe. Fresh water could contain bacteria, parasites, protozoa, animal waste, disease-causing organisms invisible to every human eye. Hunter-gatherers certainly became sick. Archaeological evidence and modern studies of traditional societies both suggest that intestinal infections have accompanied humanity throughout nearly its entire evolutionary history. So if dangerous microbes were always present, why didn't they wipe out entire populations? The answer lies not only in the water itself, but inside the remarkable immune system that evolution had been quietly building for millions of years. The idea that prehistoric humans possessed stronger stomachs is one of the most common explanations people give when discussing ancient life. It sounds reasonable. After all, if people drank untreated water every day, surely their digestive systems must have evolved into nearly indestructible machines. The reality is far more fascinating. Early humans were not immune to waterborne diseases. They suffered from diarrhea. They carried intestinal parasites. They became infected with bacteria. Many children almost certainly died from severe dehydration caused by gastrointestinal illness long before reaching adulthood. Archaeologists have discovered parasite eggs preserved in ancient human remains dating back thousands of years. Modern hunter-gatherer societies living traditional lifestyles also experience intestinal infections that would be familiar to our distant ancestors. Disease was always part of prehistoric life. What evolution produced was not perfect protection. It produced resilience. From the moment a prehistoric child was born, the immune system entered an environment overflowing with microorganisms. Babies crawled across soil. Children played in rivers. Families butchered wild animals. Hands constantly touched plants, insects, rocks, and untreated water. Every day exposed the immune system to thousands of different microbes. Some were dangerous. Most were harmless. Many were actually helpful. Rather than growing inside a highly sanitized environment, the developing immune system spent childhood continuously learning to distinguish genuine threats from harmless organisms. Modern scientists often compare the immune system to an enormous biological training program. Every encounter teaches it something. Every infection leaves behind memory cells. Every recovered illness improves future defenses. This does not mean repeated exposure makes someone invincible. Far from it. But over years of continuous interaction with natural environments, the immune system becomes remarkably skilled at recognizing countless microorganisms. Equally important is another hidden world that prehistoric humans carried inside their own bodies: the gut microbiome. Inside every healthy human intestine live trillions of bacteria. Although the word bacteria often sounds frightening, most of these microscopic organisms are not enemies. Many help digest food. Some manufacture vitamins. Others produce chemicals that influence metabolism and even brain function. Perhaps most importantly, they compete with harmful microbes for space and nutrients. A diverse microbial community acts like an ecological barrier. When harmful bacteria enter the digestive system, they often encounter billions of resident microbes already occupying available territory. This competition can reduce the ability of dangerous organisms to establish large infections. Modern research has repeatedly shown that gut microbial diversity plays a major role in immune function. Interestingly, people living traditional rural lifestyles often possess much greater microbial diversity than individuals living in heavily industrialized societies. Scientists continue investigating exactly why this occurs: diet, environmental exposure, animal contact, natural soil microorganisms, all appear to contribute. This research connects closely with a well-known scientific idea called the hygiene hypothesis. Despite its name, the hygiene hypothesis does not argue that cleanliness is harmful. Clean drinking water, proper sanitation, and hand washing have saved millions of lives. Instead, the hypothesis suggests that growing up in extremely sanitized environments may reduce certain types of microbial exposure that historically helped shape immune development. Our immune systems evolved over hundreds of thousands of years inside ecosystems filled with bacteria, fungi, parasites, plants, and animals. Modern childhood often looks very different. Many researchers now believe this dramatic environmental shift may influence immune regulation, allergies, autoimmune diseases, and perhaps even some inflammatory conditions. The science continues evolving, and not every study reaches identical conclusions. But one important point remains clear. Prehistoric humans did not survive because dirty water was harmless. Nor did they survive because evolution magically eliminated disease. Many people still became seriously ill. Many undoubtedly died, especially infants, young children, older adults, individuals weakened by injury or malnutrition. Waterborne disease has probably accompanied humanity for nearly our entire existence. There was, however, one enormous difference between prehistoric life and later civilization. Hunter-gatherer groups were usually small, perhaps 20, 30, 40 individuals, sometimes fewer. These communities moved frequently across enormous landscapes. If one person became sick, opportunities for massive epidemics remained relatively limited compared with the crowded cities that would appear thousands of years later. Ironically, the greatest revolution in human disease would not come from nature. It would come from civilization itself. For most of human history, the greatest danger was not simply drinking untreated water. It was living too close to too many other people. As long as humans remained hunter-gatherers, populations stayed remarkably small. Families moved with the seasons. Camps were temporary. Waste rarely accumulated in one place for very long. Water sources had time to recover as people moved across the landscape. Then, around 12,000 years ago, everything began to change. Agriculture transformed humanity. Instead of following migrating animals across vast territories, people settled permanently beside fertile rivers. Villages appeared, then towns, then cities. For the first time in history, thousands of people began living together in the same location every day of every year. At first, this seemed like an extraordinary success. Food production increased, population exploded, civilizations emerged. But hidden beneath this progress was an invisible problem: human waste, animal waste, shared water. Early farming communities kept livestock close to their homes. People drank from rivers that also carried sewage. Rain washed waste into wells. Entire settlements depended on the same few water sources. Unlike small hunter-gatherer camps that constantly moved, permanent settlements allowed disease-causing microorganisms to circulate continuously. One infected individual could contaminate water used by hundreds of others. Eventually, entire cities became vulnerable. History provides countless examples: cholera, typhoid fever, dysentery. These diseases repeatedly swept through ancient and medieval populations, killing enormous numbers of people. Ironically, many of these devastating outbreaks would have been almost impossible among small, mobile hunter-gatherer bands. Not because prehistoric water was perfectly clean, but because pathogens had fewer opportunities to spread rapidly through large populations. Civilization created entirely new ecological conditions for disease. As cities expanded, people slowly began searching for solutions. Some cultures dug deeper wells, others transported water through aqueducts. Many eventually discovered that boiling water reduced illness, even though nobody yet understood why. Centuries later came filtration, then sanitation systems, then sewage treatment. Finally, during the 19th and 20th centuries, scientists identified bacteria, viruses, and parasites responsible for waterborne disease. Modern water treatment transformed public health more dramatically than almost any medical discovery in history. Today, chlorination, filtration, ultraviolet sterilization, and carefully monitored distribution systems protect billions of people every single day. For many of us, safe drinking water arrives simply by turning a faucet. It is easy to forget how extraordinary that is. The bottle of water sitting on a kitchen table represents thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Evolution shaped the immune system. Observation taught people where to find cleaner water. Engineering built wells and aqueducts. Medicine uncovered microorganisms. Modern science created purification systems capable of removing organisms our ancestors never even knew existed. Yet despite all this progress, one fascinating truth remains: the human body itself has changed surprisingly little. Your stomach is not dramatically different from the stomach of a hunter who lived 50,000 years ago. Your immune system follows many of the same biological principles. Your intestines still contain trillions of microorganisms working together every moment of your life. The greatest transformation did not occur inside the human body. It occurred outside it. We changed the environment. We changed sanitation. We changed technology. We changed civilization. The next time you fill a glass from the kitchen sink, pause for a moment. For nearly all of human history, nobody understood bacteria. Nobody knew viruses existed. Nobody had ever seen a parasite through a microscope. Yet generation after generation survived by carefully observing nature, learning from experience, choosing water sources wisely, and relying on an immune system refined through millions of years of evolution. Early humans did not possess magical resistance to dirty water. Many became sick, many died. But they also lived in smaller groups, moved across cleaner landscapes, and adapted to environments very different from the crowded cities we know today. Perhaps that is the greatest surprise hidden inside every glass of clean water. The reason we drink safely today is not because humans evolved beyond disease. It is because civilization eventually learned to work with nature instead of unknowingly fighting against it. Every sip of clean water is more than a modern convenience. It is the final chapter in one of humanity's oldest survival stories.